Have you ever been out on a dark country road, not knowing where you're going, and what seems like there's not a soul within miles? You pick up your phone to realize you have zero signal to make any phone calls, but then you realize that you have Google Maps or a navigation device with you, which gives you the ability to find your way home. This is all possible due to the GPS satellite system. Hi, my name is Ryan Leader, and today we'll be talking about the GPS system and some of the aspects with it. First, we'll be talking about how the satellites are launched, then how it has affected the military, and finally how it affects our everyday lives. Let's begin by talking about how the satellites are launched. According to Boeing, GPS satellites are produced in El Segundo, California at the Boeing Satellite Development Center. From there, they're shipped to the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Florida. Once the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Florida, under the United Launch Alliance, are either mounted on a Atlas V or Delta IV rocket. Once the launch occurs, the satellite is propelled into its orbit, and Garmin states that there are 24 GPS satellites in the constellation in a geosynchronous orbit that provide a 24-hour, all-weather navigation capability for around the world. Now we've talked about how the GPS satellites are launched, let's talk about how GPS affect the military. There are many things and many pieces of equipment that cannot be used without GPS in the military. According to Boeing, one of the biggest ways GPS is used in the military is what's called the Joint Direct Attack Munition, otherwise called the JDAM. With GPS, JDAMs provide a highly accurate pinpoint munition, which in turn reduces collateral damage and only hitting its intended target. Another way GPS has affected the military is back when Afghanistan and Iraq were invaded. GPS provided a navigation system for the troops on the ground in a otherwise empty desert, providing navigation to its final destination. Without this highly accurate system, valuable time, energy, and resources would have been wasted, possibly dictating a different outcome in the invasion. Now we've talked about how GPS has affected the military, we'll now talk about how it affects our everyday lives. There are many applications and many ways that GPS affects our everyday lives that people may not know. One of the biggest ways that we use GPS today is navigating our own personal vehicles. As we stated earlier, without the navigation system, there was a possibility that you could not find your way home by yourself. Another way is with civilian aircraft. With highly accurate systems such as the GPS, in-air mishaps are reduced, and you're also able to get to your proper destination in the shortest amount of time. And finally, according to the GPS Intelligence LLC, GPS can be used for recreational purpose such as geocaching, which is basically a scavenger hunt with GPS. Also, most new smartphones have the ability to location stamp your photos, giving the ability to go back and review where the photo was taken. Now that we've talked about how GPS affects our everyday lives, I'll now remind you of some of the things we talked about today. First, we talked about some of the aspects with GPS and how it's launched from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station and the steps in that process. Then we talked about how GPS has affected the military in some of the major ways over the past few years. GPS has been used effectively. Finally, we talked about how GPS is used in our everyday lives, everywhere from operating and navigating our own personal vehicles down to recreational purposes. I hope I've informed you today about the GPS satellite system and how our lives could have been or could be different without it. Thank you.